Angela Wolf here, Brother Brand Ambassador. It's so nice to see you on this beautiful sunny day if you're in Michigan. It's hot and sunny, but it's gorgeous. But you know what? It's a great time to get ready for some great projects. So we are live streaming on Brother Sewing and Crafting, and we are on the Facebook and YouTube pages. I had to think about it for a second. So we can see all your comments, and wait till you see what Cindy Hogan has in store for you today. So grab your ScanNCut, grab your notepad, grab your tea. Let's grab Cindy. Cindy, I'm so excited about this cute project.
It's fun, easy, and quick. You can have this one done in an hour at the most.
Okay, so those are 3 words that are perfect for right now because a lot of people, like, you want to be outside, you want to be doing something fun, quick, easy. I got it.
Fun, quick, easy. That's all I had time for.
And you're going to be using the ScanNCut. Oh, and cute, yes. If nobody saw the picture, I'll bring it up here for you in a second. But if you didn't see the little header. So do you have it right there next to you?
No, I have it at the cutting table.
Oh, we'll see it in a second. So,
yeah.
By the way, anyone that has a ScanNCut, this is going to be a great project because, Cindy, I don't know about you, but I have noticed so many comments recently on the live shows, people that bought the ScanNCut, maybe they went to a big event and they grabbed it, they've seen it, but they haven't taken it out of the box yet. They're like, what do I do with this? And they're a little bit afraid. I think that your project's going to be perfect for this.
I think so. And you don't actually even have to sew this one if you don't want to. You could glue it down and be happy and go on about your business. But I actually did sew mine together. So we may as well learn a few things about our sewing machines while we're at it. Any sewing machine will work. If you happen to have one of the top of the lines, there are a few features that I'll show you along the way there as well that may make your life a little bit easier. And if you don't have the stitch that's on mine, if you have a Brother machine, we have my custom stitch and you could easily create the stitch that I'm using. So
that sounds perfect. This is going to be very exciting. So for those of you watching, by the way, we can see all of your comments on YouTube and Facebook. If you want to watch this over, the best thing is to share it to your page on Facebook. And if you're on YouTube, you can actually, don't forget to subscribe, but also you can click share, watch later, all those things so you can come back and watch this. Because, Cindy, when you do some of these, it's so great to follow along. And this way they can watch the first time, ask questions, and then follow along when they watch the replay.
I agree. And, I always forget to tell people to share it to their page, to like it, to, go in there and save it in your favorites on YouTube. So there's a lot of ways that you can come back and find the ones that you want. Because I don't know about you, but we've done so many of these now. When somebody emails me and goes, when did you do this show? And I'm like, well, wait a minute. It was around this season. So kind of look back in May of last year,
So true. So true.
And we just tend to do so many that who knows. So you guys ready to dive in?
We are. Take it away.
Let's switch over to different cameras here. And one last thing. So I can hear you. I'm changing my sound. Okay, guys. So what I did was I printed out a design. You could draw one yourself or print it out. I just printed something out that I created in my software program. This was actually an embroidery design, and I just switched it out in BES and turned it into artwork because I have the second power pack, which makes that super easy. So I have it here on my scan mat. And if you don't have a scan mat, this really is a nice mat to have. And the reason I say that is because you'll notice there's no grid marks on it. So after you've cut a few times, your mat gets dirty and it gets cut lines on it, and the scanner will pick those cut lines up. So it's really nice to have the clean scan mat to use. So if you don't have one, I would suggest you get that. And down here, there's some markings that actually mean something that they're actually correspond to numbers and letters on the side telling you what size paper you're cutting. So if you didn't know that, you do have that option in your scanner to be able to play it. So today we are going to scan to cut data. Because I'm using the scan mat, I can't do a direct cut. That direct cut would mean I would cut out this pattern itself. And that's not what I want to do. I want to create a pattern for me to be able to cut out a fabric with this design. So that's where we're going to go. Let me switch over to my ScanNCut. And let's turn this bad boy on. And we're going to load our mat. So my mat is loaded. And so let's go in here and see what we want to do with it. I'm going to touch the scan key. And there are your scan options. You have direct cut, scan to cut data, scan to USB, which is just like a household scanner. It saves it out as a JPEG, or scan to transfer it to Canvas Workspace. This is a simple piece of artwork. Scan to cut data will work beautifully for us today. So let's do that. And I have it as black and white. You have black and white and color options here. And those markings that I was telling you about, this is where you find out where those additional sizes are. So if you had something set in a specific area, you could certainly choose that. I'm just going to let it look at the whole kit and caboodle today. And that's usually what you'll do most of. But if you're trying to scan something in and you want to take it over to your Luminaire and you don't have one of the latest models, then when you're scanning, you might want to choose one of those smaller options. So remember, because when you scan to USB, it saves it as a JPEG, and your Luminaire has to be able to see that entire space. So it's finding it, and it's going to come here and do recognizing, kind of doing its little spin. Give it just a second, and we'll be ready to go. So here are our options. We have outline only, the outsides and the insides of the outline. So let me show you the differences while we're doing this. So you can see that this has just done the outline of that area. I'm going to go ahead and crop it in so it's just looking at that and not the text that's above it. If I chose this option, it would look to the inside and the outside of the outline that I had there. And this separates it into the parts. We don't need that. So we're going to choose outline only and just go ahead and touch preview, see what we get. And now we're ready to say okay, because it looks perfect. And we're going to save it to our machine. So once it's saved, we can unload our mat and we can go grab our other mat.
Hey, Cindy, while you're doing that, I just want to point out one thing, because I know there's a few people in here who have different variations of the ScanNCut. You're using the SDX 330, is that?
I am using the SDX 330. It will work. This process will work with any SDX model that we have.
Perfect.
So grayscale gives you the 3 options. Color gives you fewer options to choose from. All right, so let's go home on this and go ahead and clear our screen so we're ready to go when we get back here. Let's go back over here. So now that we've scanned it, I've got my fabric mat here. Now I have prepared my fabric with a heavy duty starch. So notice gold is fabric, okay? That means it's got more sticky than any of the other mats. And you'll see right there, it's super duper sticky. And this is such a great little project to use your scraps on. It's not even funny. You don't need much fabric at all. So we're going to come here and slap some scraps down. And you can pick whatever color theme you want. I went with red, gold, and blue. And I'm just kind of putting them down here where I think that the project will land, but I can always move things around. Okay, so I've got this ready. We're going to come over to our ScanNCut machine again, and let's load this mat in. So we're going to touch the load button, and you'll notice I've got my hand here to guide my mat in so that it doesn't go in crooked. And we're simply going to pull that pattern up. So if we choose retrieve data here, and we go to the machine, that's where I saved it to. If I had saved it to USB, it would be on the USB stick. The last thing I scan will be on the last page. So I'm going to choose the last page and this option right here, because that's the one I just scanned in, and we'll tell it, okay, we're ready to go with that. Now, I want to do a background scan. That's going to let me know where the fabrics are on my mat. So let's go ahead and touch the background scan key and touch start. It'll take a picture of what's down on your mat. So, and that's perfect for our purposes here, because then we don't have to think about things. We can perfectly see where they're placed, so we know what to do. Any questions so far, Angela?
Oh, everybody is loving this. Actually, there's a couple, but it's not a brother product. Somebody just wanted to know what starch you use. But how much starch did you put on that fabric was another question.
I mix my own starch, so it's a pretty heavily concentrate of it. This one is kind of lighter than what I normally do, but it may have been 1/4 cup of starch to the 3/4 cup of water. I'm going to go ahead and edit, and we're going to move the star down into the yellow, and I'm going to move that over here, move my red over here, and my little red piece right here. So let's zoom in a little bit and see what else we can do. So I actually want that rotated so I can maximize my space. You can see that I'm saving my scraps. Well, y'all know we're fabric hoarders. So let's go ahead and do object edit and go into rotate. And let's rotate a little bit here till we get that to where it's kind of, there we go. So see, I can almost get 2 out of that. Let's go back just a little bit. And then you can move it where you want it placed. All right, I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to move him over here. And take this little guy and let's rotate him. Oops. Go ahead and touch OK. And then touch OK again. I'm going to move him up just a little bit with this, so he's closer. You don't have to do this. You could put it wherever it landed on your fabric. That's not a big deal. That's just what I did. Now, I will tell you, I wanted a bit bigger of a star. So I went into my object edit and I touched my resize key and made it just a bit bigger. This one may be bigger than the one I have on my screen. I'm not sure. But the other thing I wanted was for when I'm sewing, I wanted a guide to sew along. And the ScanNCut has the perfect option for us to do this. You can go to the offset key and take the distance to a negative number. And you'll notice that it goes inside my cut line. And that's where I want it to be. So let's go ahead and touch OK, because I'm all set up and ready to go. Touch OK again. And I'm going to switch out holders. Now, let me bring you back over here for a second. So this is my pen cartridge. And your machine comes with an air erasable and a water erasable. If you have one of the SDX, either the 325 or the 330, they both come with these. The 225 came with them as well. So we basically put the pen in, put the cap in the top so we don't lose it, because that little sucker tends to fly away sometimes. And now we're ready to insert it into the machine. So I'm going to take out my cutter and I'm going to insert my cartridge and just basically press it down and lock it in place. So now let's tell it what we want it to do. Since our ScanNCut does more than just cut, we're going to go ahead and touch OK and tell it what we want it to do. So we're going to touch please select and draw. So I'm going to have it draw all of it for the first time around. So we'll just go ahead and say start. And it's telling me my lever is at position 1. I need it to be at position 2. So on the right, this side of your machine, if you're facing it, it's the left side, there's a little lever. You lift that lever switch up. And the reason it's telling me that is that if you were drawing, you could actually get ink on your scanner glass. So it wants you to raise that glass up and out of the way. It doesn't let you make that mistake and get that smear on there. If you pay attention to it, it'll tell you exactly what you need to do. So it's going to draw all of my pattern pieces out first. And I really didn't need to draw the red or the blue, but while it's drawing, it just saved me a step of saving and having to bring them back individually. So it's not like it doesn't go away because I've got the water erasable pen in there. Well, now let's come and take this out and take it back out of the garbage can and put the lid back on it so it doesn't dry out. Now we're going to switch out to our cutting tool. And let's go back and look at our screen. So it's finished drawing. We're going to go ahead and touch OK, but I want to go back because I don't want it to cut out both parts of my star. So I want to go into the edit menu and we're going to find the little bitty star, which is that one right there, and put it in the trash can. So you want me to do that one more time? The little arrows on here allow you to go through the different parts of the design. And if you look, you can tell that it is now around the interior one. But if you can't tell, you can always switch back and forth and see which one it's inside. So there we are. The smaller star is the one I want to get rid of. Now we're ready to cut. So let's go ahead and say OK, OK again, and tell it let's cut. And we'll go ahead and start. So it's going to cut exactly what I have out here. And then we're ready to take it off of our mat. Any questions while it's cutting, Ange? I'm going to show you what I was doing by the negative offset. It's giving me a line so that I have something to stitch on. I don't hear you.
Oh, I guess it would help if I didn't turn my microphone off. So Patty, that was a great question there, and Cindy got you covered.
Okay, so let's look here. Let me zoom in so you can see here. Do you see how I've got two lines on my star? They're real close together, but I actually have two lines. And if I peel this one away, you can see that they're right there, but that gives me a guide along which to sew. So that was what I was doing with that negative offset. I was trying to give myself a little guide as to how I wanted to sew, so I didn't have to pay attention to where I was on my machine. So let's take these little guys off. I use that little trick a lot when I'm manually sewing something down. And that's the thing. So I'm using my little spatula to get these little guys off. The metal one's perfect for that, but if you don't have it, the plastic one will work too. Okay. So now we have these guys ready to go. And I'll be back over here in a little bit. Oops, where did my little tip go? There it is. I'll be back over here in a little bit once we've got our wrap ready to be assembled. Okay. So where did we go? There we go. There's all my little parts. But if I bring this up really close, you can see that extra line. Wrong way. There you can see that little line there for me to follow along.
That's a great idea. That's a really good idea. And Patty, hopefully that helped now, but this is very cute. Okay. So let me move. Oh no, I just moved my camera. While you're doing that, somebody asked about that spatula. If you visit your local brother dealer, you can find those spatulas there. Those make it so easy to get everything, vinyl, fabric, everything off of your cutting mat. And
yes, they do.
Somebody asked you earlier, Cindy, I know you mentioned that you use starch on your fabric. Someone asked if you had any backing on there as well.
No, I do not have backing on it today. Today we're going backless.
Great. And whoever asked that, by the way, I know it was quite a while ago, you cannot have backing on your fabric if you're going to use the fabric mat. So keep that in mind. That's why the starch works so great. All right.
Let me do one last thing before I come over here. Let's look at what we're actually doing. So here's my little jar wrap. Okay. And you can see I've quilted along it. And that's what we're about to do is I've already done the center line for us. We're going to quilt the other two sides of it. And then we'll get back to going the route. Okay. That makes sense?
That makes sense.
Right, so we are going to start with stitch 1-04. That is your center needle position. I have my move it foot on. If you don't have a move it foot, you can use a walking foot or you can use your regular J foot. Any of them will work. But what I've done is I prepared my fabric with a batting type material. This is kind of a cross between a fleece, not a fleece, but what am I trying to say? Felt and a batting. And I don't know the name of it. And honestly, I could not find the name of it, but it's the only thing I had that was white in the house. So you can use regular batting if you want, but this is what I had. And I measured around my jar and I have made my fabric 2 inches long, 3 inches longer than my jar. So I'm going to say that again. My wrap is 3 inches longer than my jar and it is 5 inches wide. Okay.
Okay.
Now let's set up to show what we want to do here. If you don't have the latest and greatest machine that doesn't have a guideline, doesn't have the grid, mark your inch lines. So mark an inch from each side of the middle. Okay. I don't have to do that because I do have the guideline and that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to cheat and turn the guideline on and turn my sub onto the grid. And I've got my grid set as high as I can. You could take it down to an inch if you want, or depending on which way you're going. An inch is 25.4 millimeters. So you'll notice down here below it, it shows you the inch mark. When you hit a number that has a exact match to the US, it will automatically change it to English units. But I'm going to go ahead and take it all the way up. And we're going to go ahead and close that down. And my grid is going to be projected on here. And it's in green. So let's see if, let me turn off my machine light so you can see what's happening with it. If I turn that off, you'll be able to see my grid light. I do believe. So let's look down at my, so you see my grid lines? The green is my grid. The red is the line I'm going to follow along. And I started about 1/4 of an inch in so that when I went to trim off my batting, when I put my seam in to combine them together, that it would actually go forth. I didn't have to pick out as many stitches. So we're going to go ahead and just take off. You can make your stitches longer if you want. That is up to you. But I'm just following this green grid line down that center. And I've got a pen that I almost ran over because I wasn't paying attention. Not a good plan. All right. And so now I'm here about 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to go ahead and just trim off. Let me get my hand out of the way. And we'll go to the opposite side. And the grid line works the exact same way. This time I'm going to pay attention to this side. And it keeps me from having to mark. I only marked the one spot. All right. So we're about 1/4 of an inch away. Let's trim it. Everybody good with that?
That looks great.
All right, let's come back over here. So now we need to use a little glue pen. You ought to see the cords I'm stepping over right now. Okay, I'm straddling the cords, gang. So now you'll notice I've marked the center of my entire project so that I know where that was. My center line down the middle here is my center. And then I'm just going to kind of lay these down. And you can put them however you want them. But I'm about to glue them together. So I made a much bigger star this time around. So let me grab my dust ruffle for my ScanNCut mat, and we'll use that as to hold the glue so that it doesn't get on my cutting mat. And I'm just using a little glue pen, a little fabric glue pen here.
Will you lift that? Will you slide your fabric up just a little bit, Cindy?
Yep.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Little fabric glue pen here. I'll stick it up underneath there. It's kind of a primitive look, so it doesn't have to be perfect, gang. That is the fun thing about doing it yourself. You don't have to be spot on because you're the one going to sew it together. And then we're going to put our last little guy, the star, on. There we go. And that's what I did, okay? So you could leave it alone if you wanted. I might iron it down a little bit, but you could actually leave it alone. Or if you didn't want to do it this way, you could use your standard mat and you could have backed your fabric. I did not back my fabric, okay?
And then, Cindy, just so they know, like if you put backing on your fabric, then you could have just pressed that in place. So
Exactly.
You've shown easy ways to do this, probably with stuff you've laying around. And if you want this to be just a quick, easy project, you could be almost finished right now.
You could be, yeah. Basically, if you had used an adhesive backing on it, just press it in place. Actually, I would probably not have drawn this if I was going to do that method. But you could just basically press your adhesive backing on there and be done once you sew it together. But we're going to go at this route just so you can see a few different things. And let's go back over here to the sewing machine. Oh, wrong one. Sorry about that. Okay, so this time we're going to, let me turn off this little guy right here. And we're going to choose stitch 2-04. And I'm going to show you the difference between these two stitches. There's a 2-03 and a 2-04. If you look at my screen, 2-03 is longer and it's thicker. That's because it stitches over itself a couple of times. And I didn't like that. That wasn't what I wanted to do. So I wanted the lighter look, but if you like the heavier look, by all means, you can go with a heavier one. If you don't have 2-04 on your machine, or I mean, you may find these in a different menu, but generally they're underneath your category too. You can create your own. And if we have time for that at the end, I'll show you how to do that. This one actually will work with my move it foot. So I love it. And I have my open toe foot with it. And I'm going to change to a 60 weight thread. So let me thread my machine here and we'll get going. I'm going to show you the difference between the two stitches first. So let me turn on my light again so you can see what they look like. And let's go here. All right, so I'm doing 2-03 first so you can see what it looks like. And you'll notice how it does 2 and then down. So it's a little bit heavier of a stitch. And now I'm going to use the one that I'm actually going to use. And this is 2-04. It's going to tie off and then it's going to do, you'll notice how it's only doing one stitch in between. And it's just a lighter look. So it all depends on what you want it to look like, but let me flip this up so you can see. This is the 2-03, the heavier one. This is the lighter one. Okay.
You can really see the difference once you did both of those and put them together, Cindy.
Yeah, I think you can definitely tell a difference, and you'll tell a difference on your project around the edges. So that's why I liked that the other way. So now I'm going to switch over. Since I have it, I'm going to switch over to my projector. If you don't, that's okay. You don't have to have a projector to do this project. But this does allow me to see it down on the bed of my machine. So one more time, let me turn off my light so y'all can see what I'm talking about. And then let's project it back down. But I'm going to show you another little trick that I know that the Dream machine has on it. If you don't have a projector, shoot. So you can see how my stitch is projected down on here. And if you don't like the color, you can always switch to a different color. I'm going to change it to black so you can see it a little bit better down on there. I can see it perfectly clear on mine, but you may not be able to tell that. But let me show you another little trick that you can do. So if you're not using the projector, I know that the Dream has it on it, and this has it on it as well. So you can see the camera when I'm not in projector mode. Let me see if I can zoom in on that so you can see that real good. Oops, wrong way. You got to see my mess. Oh. So you see how that stitch is showing up against that edge?
Right.
Let me change colors and maybe it'll help here.
There we go. Much better.
So that gives you an idea of where you are and allows you to see what you're doing. So both ways will work. I'm going to back out. Oops, wrong way.
That's all right. I can see, by the way, Cindy, so many people are here going, we're so happy to have these shows back. And we just reminded them why, because we love the live shows.
So I'm going to project mine down on here and go back to the color black so I can see what I'm doing. And we're going to stitch. Now, there's one other thing that a lot of our machines have. If you have the dual foot controller, we can come in here and do a little adjustment here. So let's go find my dual foot controller. Down here where it says press to trim, I can actually, wrong one. Here we go. So right now I've got my back, the left button, the left one saying thread cutting. If I want to go one stitch, I can have it do that. I have this doing needle up, needle down. I'm going to change that to a single stitch. And you'll see why here in just a minute. Because I have a heavy foot on the sewing machine side, and I know this. That will allow me when I get to my corners to take a single stitch to turn my corner. All right. Now let's see here. I'm going to drop my needle. There we go. And let's get started. So when you get close to the end, which I'm real close to it, I'm going to take, now I'm going to take my single stitch with my back one so that I know till I get to that corner. There we go. Now I can turn my corner and take my single stitch again. I'm going to take one more at an angle. Now I'm ready to turn and go forth and multiply. If you don't have that little trick, when you get to the end here, just start going a little slower. Take one stitch and turn. And take one stitch straight up again and then turn. Oops. Does help if you pay attention to what you're doing. There we go. Any questions so far?
No, everybody's just, they're loving this. Yes, by the way, she is using the Brother Luminaire, but as she mentioned, if you just have any Brother sewing machine, you'll find a stitch to be able to do this. So you're good.
Okay, so, and you would do the same thing for all of it. So do you want me to go ahead and applique all these pieces? I'll do one more for us and then we may go on to the next part.
Whatever you want. Everybody's loving this tutorial, Cindy.
How am I on time?
You're good. You got about less than a half hour.
All right, so I'm going to tie off here and I hit the wrong button. Didn't mean to do that. So let's go ahead and go around this one. Now I'm going to do my single stitch trick again and turn my corner here just a little bit with one stitch in and one stitch out and go again. Now I'm ready to rock and roll.
Cindy, Victoria wants to know, is that single stitch on or off the fabric? Is the edge of your blanket stitch on the fabric or?
It is on the fabric. It is right on the fabric.
Great, thanks. Great question, Victoria.
So yeah, it's right there on that edge of the fabric. It allows you to turn that corner without having a big stress, without having to hold your breath. It does allow you to turn that corner. And I mean, guys, you could shorten the stitch if you wanted to. That's certainly an option as well. I'm going to tie off and it will cut here for me. All right, so then you've got your two little sides. These are quick. We may as well just do them right.
Sure.
That'll give me a chance to show you one last trick on this part. So if I don't want to turn my fabric, which is what I would normally do, you do have an option, guys. So in this menu right here, you have the stitch mirror. So if I flip it, you'll notice how it goes to the opposite side. So that saves me from having to rotate my project, and I'll just take it and put it over on the opposite side. See where I'm going. And we'll go forth and multiply here. All right, so now you're going to see why I made those little marks on my fabric. Let's come look at which stitch we want, and you're simply going to go to your regular stitches, and I'm going to grab the center needle. You can pick whichever your favorite happens to be, but that's the one I picked. So So let's come look at our project. So we're going to start in the corner of one of the stars. And that line is going to give me a line to follow so that I don't have to be figuring out exactly where I need to take my stitch. So when you get to the end, I've got pivot engaged. If you don't have pivot on your machine, if you have a needle lifter, the knee lifter, you can use that as well. I am addicted to machines with pivot. But this makes my shape come into a nice little star in the stitching as well. I tried it without it. I wasn't real good. So having a guide is always a nice little thing. And I'm going to trim that off there. Especially when you're sewing one-handed. We're almost done. You can tell I've got a lead foot because when I go fast on this, I go too far. Then match it right up with your starting point and tie off and cut. And this is what we've got.
So cute.
So I've got one where I've already trimmed it down. After you've stitched this together, you may need to trim. So I think I trimmed mine down to, hold on, we'll go measure it and see what we've got. So here's my project. I've cut a piece of fabric that is, I have to remember off the top of my head, 15 inches wide to back it, okay? So this, from here to here is 15 inches wide. And I trimmed this one down to about 14 5/8, okay? And you'll notice I have marked a 1/2 inch in on this side right here so that when after I've stitched everything together, I'm going to come back and trim that off. I have cut this to where it's 4 1/2 inches wide. Okay. So that gave me space to trim on both sides so that I had an even project. If you don't cut it a little bit big after you've basically stitched things on, it may be a little waffly. So let me show you what I mean. It may not be totally straight after you've stitched stuff. So if you trim it down, it'll make sure that both sides are even. And that's the only reason I did that. All right. So I've got my right sides together. I've marked a 1/2 inch on one side, and you'll notice I've left a longer tail on this one. I'm going to leave this end open so that I can turn it in nice. Okay.
Looks good.
So, let's start back at the machine, and I'm going to switch out feet here. I'm going to take this one off, and I'm going to put my 1/4 inch foot with a guide on. And I just realized I had this guy.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one, Cindy. Sometimes I'll go and clean my drawers out by my machine. I'm like, what is this? Where did I get this? And that's a great foot.
You know, I knew I had it, and I'm going to turn off the projector. We don't need it now, so I'm just going to turn my light back on my machine so y'all can see what I'm doing here. And I'm going to start sewing at the line that I made. That's a 1/2 inch in from the long piece of fabric. So let's go ahead and get started. We're using that same stitch that we were using. It's my 1-04. It's your straight stitch center.
Everyone watching, I just have to ask you all, some of us are going back to sewing events, to dealer events, to sewing expos. How many of you have purchased something there that you forgot about, and kind of like Cindy and I were referring to now, you all of a sudden, a year later, 2 years later, you're cleaning something out and you're like, oh my gosh, I bought this forever ago. Where have you been all my life?
You know, I remember saying, boy, I wish I had that. And I happened to I was looking for a different foot. I was looking for my roller foot the other day and happened to notice that, wow, there you go. I have it. So I'm going to turn my corner. And that guide makes turning your corner so easy because you can tell exactly if you're in the wrong spot.
We're not the only one. We have friends, Cindy. We have friends.
Good, because I'm telling you, sometimes, if you don't use, you bought it for a reason and you don't use it immediately, you forget you have it.
Oh, yes.
All right, so we're about done with this. And when you're stitching with one hand, this really makes it a whole lot easier. All right, so there we go. Let's tie it off. Okay, so now let's go back over to our cutting table. We're about done, gang. I'm going to trim this right here. So up along that stitch line, I'm taking my curved scissors and I'm going to trim back all that batting. You could leave it like it is, but it does make it easier if you trim back your batting.
Cindy, while you're doing that, I have to just tell you, is it Marcia that did this? No, Lorraine. Lorraine Strong says that she keeps her feet organized in ice cube trays. That's brilliant.
Who would have thought of that? Good job.
Know, right? That's a good one. I like that.
I do as well.
And then I think it was Victoria wanted to know, while you're cutting that, I'll just pipe in with a few other questions here. She said, is there any way that you can have the foot automatically go to the center? A lot of the machines, it'll automatically be defaulted to the far right. Yes, you can go into the settings on your Luminaire and you can plan that. I like to sew with it in the center. So I have mine set that every time the machine goes on, it's right in the centers. And you can do that. Just go to your settings. Easy to do.
Yes, it will be on your machine. I think it's the machine settings. You can have it default to center needle position. Or it really is based on the stitch, though. Some of them are left needle position. So if you choose a stitch that's different, it'll actually default to the spot that it's supposed to. Okay, gang, we're about done with this trimming. And I did not bring an iron in here, so we're going to have fun. And then that little line that I marked on my batting, I'm going to come in here and cut right across it.
It was Judy. Got it, Judy. And yes, Cindy Ball. Yes, Cindy Hogan has her usual live show today. And yes, I have mine tomorrow. So yes. We're back on track this week. Well, Cindy, I don't think you ever went off track.
Well, yeah, I did actually, because I was going to tape some back to business classes.
Oh, that's right.
That handy dandy little glue stick, you're going to take it and use it again. You're going to take it and put it on this fabric and fold it over so that it stays back before you turn it. And I actually will press the iron to that to make it stay. But I forgot my iron in the other room.
We got the idea.
And do the same thing on this side. Just flip it back. So you're going to have a nice even spot for when you turn this in and you don't have to fight it. That's why I left a little bit of extra on that end. All right, so then you're ready to turn it. And y'all are going to laugh at my turning tool.
Your thumbs?
No, I got something even funnier here.
Like I have those.
My paintbrush.
You can use
because it's long, and this is a long tube.
Good idea.
I always have a paintbrush in my sewing room for some reason. Well, I use it to clean out my bobbin casing a lot.
Oh, that's a good. And for me, I'm gonna have to go with the chopsticks because I'm always eating sushi for lunch.
There you go. And same principle. It's a nice little pointed end and we're good to go. So I'm going to take this and we're about there. Take my handy dandy pointing device and poke my corners out. And then you're just going to press that down, okay? And stitch up this end. So to make this pretty, there we go. My glue kind of came off a little bit. I didn't give it enough time to dry before I turned. And once again, I will cheat and add a little glue there after I press it. But we're going to do this the non-professional way today. And we're just going to go forth and multiply. I'm going to pin it in there and we're going to stitch it down. All right. So I'm going to pin when I'm over here at the machine. Now that I've got it turned. You can clip, you can pin. I'm pinning today.
I'm going to have you bring us back to your machine there. There you go.
Wrong one. There we go.
Thanks.
You can clip, you can pin, whatever floats your boat. I'm going to pin because that's the easiest thing for me to, that's what I've got in front of my fingers. And I'm just trying to get that stuck into place. And you're just going to stitch that end closed. Oh, we do want to change to our sewing thread. Sorry about that. Hang tight a sec. Oh, I did forget one other thing. Y'all want me to, let's do that before let's do our accents before I do anything else, because if I'm going to turn this right side out again or wrong side out. No, I've already stitched it together. Oh, I've already done this one. I'll show you how to do it on the other one here in just a second. Let me go ahead and sew this guy together and then I'll show you how I did the accents.
Sounds good.
I was like, I knew I forgot something. So I'm just pinning that in place. And as I said, I would normally be very hyper aware about pressing it, making sure I don't have anything sticking out. But we are live today, so we're not going to worry too much about that. We're using the same stitch, and I'm going to go out I do have to thread the machine. The squirrel went by, Angela.
That's usually at my house. The squirrel runs by. I'm glad I was able to share with you. By the way, speaking of squirrels, Cindy, I just got back into town and I've got 2 new little babies outside. And guess what they do? Knock on the door, waiting for the peanuts.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No, they're so cute. I have to come up with names. Maybe the brother team will, brother family, come up with 2 names. I got 2 baby squirrels.
Okay, guys, I want this closer to my edge, so I'm going to do my left-right shift and move it over to the edge of my fabric. And take it all the way over to 7. So that is going to get me right there on that edge, and that's what I want it to be. Go through. Come on. Play nice with me. Okay. Press that bad boy, and then you can either put buttonholes on it, or you can, if you're in a real hurry, put you a strip of Velcro here that's glue Velcro.
That's what I was thinking.
Press this guy and you're done. Okay. But if you want to do buttonholes, I did do buttonholes. You tell me, do we have time? No, let's not do buttonholes. We can. We don't have time to do everything. So there's a couple of things I want to show before we get done. One of them is doing the little accents. So let me flip back over here for a second.
That's we got you there, and I'm enjoying this so much because I'm watching you and I'm like, I would do the Velcro, but you know what? The buttonholes would be really pretty, Cindy.
The buttonholes are pretty. So I mean, but you could fake this. Do your Velcro and just sew your buttons on.
Oh, even better. I think this would be a really good koozie idea.
Yes, it would work for koozies as well. And so for my little bursts of stars here, I just drew on my fabric where I think I wanted starburst to come out. And on this one, I have a single stitch. Can y'all see that? And I decided I liked it better with a triple stitch.
Oh, I like that with the triple stitch.
It made it much brighter, so I liked that one better. And you do this before you put it together. So I'll do one and show you how I did it. After that, I think you can go forth and multiply on your own.
Cindy, I'm trying to concentrate, but I have to tell you, we've got some pretty good names for the squirrels. We've got Chippendale until Anne realized that was those were chipmunks, but I like the Chippendale. I like Chippendale, and then someone else said name them ScanNCut. I like that.
I like that as well. They do have some good ideas.
Yes,
All
Connie,
right.
that one is a black one is a light gray one. They're like best friends. They just come up and tap on the door. Oh, we're getting a lot. Okay, back to you. Sorry, squirrel.
All right. The shiny thing went by. All right. This is our triple stitch. That's the one I'm going to go with. Once again, you can use your projector. If you don't have the projector and you have the camera, you can use the camera. You can also follow your needle. So it really is up to you. It's not a big deal either way. I'm going to go back down to the wrong one. Sorry, guys. Down here, and I'm just going to follow one of my lines. Let's start down at the bottom. And my ink's going to go away, so it doesn't really matter if you're perfect. So that is the one thing I'll say, is it truly doesn't matter if you're perfect. And just go ahead and do them all. And then there's one other thing I did on mine. Nobody has called me on it yet, but I put USA on my rocket, on my firework. Nutter and Butter, do I see as the squirrel's name? So just continue on with that, but let's go look at our decorative character decorative stitches. So character decoratives, you know, I have to say this is not something I do a lot of, but this was perfect for this project. I grabbed my alphabet and punched in USA. Oh, I do have to change my foot off.
So actually, when you had that up, I just glanced at it. I just thought it was embroidery, but the decorative stitches, I always forget about those.
I do too, because we're so used to doing embroidery, but you have decorative stitches here that are characters. And you can, once again, project them down on there. So my projector is still on. You can see that USA is being projected down on there. But once again, if you don't have that projector, and I actually liked this method better for actually stitching this, because I could tell a little bit more visually where my USA was. So I'm ready to stitch. It's within the parameters. I'm going to slide it down just a little bit. There we go. I'm good to go. I guess I should show you where it's stitching, huh?
Cindy, you've had a couple of people say, thanks for showing that camera feature. They forgot about that. And that really makes a difference for there. So now, by the way, if they wanted to have USA and they wanted to sew it, or basically you're not embroidering, you're sewing it all the way around, is there a repeat function on there?
Yes, there is.
Awesome.
So I'm going to tie off and trim and let you see. So there's my USA.
That's
How
cool.
easy was that?
Super cool.
And you're basically done. So let me show you one last thing. So if you didn't have the 2-04 stitch and you wanted to create it, so let's get out of our camera function. Yes. So let's go back to the beginning of the stitch. Let me answer your question before I move on. This right here repeats it. Okay.
Great. So somebody could just put that in. They could even add a few spaces and then just have it USA, USA, USA all the way around.
Actually, I take that back. You don't even have to do that. This is your single. That's your repeat. Once you've typed in the entire word, touch your repeat key. Okay. So let's touch character decorative stitch and home. And then this is our create a stitch key. This is your my custom stitch key. Let me back out my screen a little bit so you can see that. Return this right here is your my custom stitch key. Okay. So this is real simple. Oops, too exciting. All right, we're going to take the arrow and move it up to about the middle, not quite middle, and touch set. Move it over a little bit, touch set, move it down a little bit, touch set, move it back up, touch set. Now, you want to see what it looks like? Touch test. There's your stitch. How easy was that? Put it in your memory. Now, the deal is you do have to use your end foot. You cannot use your move it foot with a character decorative. Okay. So you can I mean, that's really how you do it. It is that simple.
That, I think, is absolutely one of the stitches or features on many of the brother machines, not just the Luminaire, that I think a lot of people have never paid attention to. In fact, I don't even think I noticed it for so long. Almost back to the Dream Machine or Dreamweaver. I can't even remember. It's on even a lot of our lower end machines. You have my custom stitch. So if you don't have a stitch that you want, you can always create it. And that is, it's huge. And that is a brother exclusive. That's one of my favorite things. In fact, I think I was trying to do a fish with mine. You can really make a lot of cool things, and then you can repeat or do them single. There's a lot of options there. In fact, Cindy, I don't know if you or if it was another educator that actually had a great video on that, if you go back through Brothers videos. So
that was Kathy Gandy. I believe she made the ruler with it.
That's right. Good memory. See, that's why we always ask you, what episode was that?
I don't know what episode number, but I remember what she did. And that was a really cool use for it. And once again, a simple stitch to create. Yeah. But I think the one I just created is about the most simple one we actually have. And it's not on a lot of the machines. It's on some of the upper end machines, but those lower ends don't have that single stitch for the blanket stitch. So that's how you can get it.
That's great. All right. Anybody have any more questions? I'm going to go through this list, by the way, and take this to Win and let him decide. I can see Marianne Tupper said that they named their squirrels Hungry, by the way. That's why they have Hungry Farm now.
And Cindy, yes, it does tie off automatically. I just wanted a little extra additional insurance on that particular stitch.
There you go. There you go. Cindy, this was such a fun project. In fact, a few of us were thinking the same thing. This would be great for a jar, a table decoration, anything like that, but it would be a great koozie and a very fast, easy one.
My finished size was about, once I turned it inside out, I do believe it was 14 1/4. Once everything was done and turned, it ended up being 14 1/4. So I started out with a 15-inch piece and it went down to 14 1/4.
That's wonderful. I see somebody asking, yes. So if you're putting this on something different, measure your jar. I think you
add 3 inches to it because that gives it space for the batting to be absorbed, because you've got to add for that additional space, especially if you're wanting to have a closure on the back.
Yeah, super easy. All right, this has been a lot of fun.
I'm going to tell them a cheat if they happen to make it too small. Put a button, put 3 buttons on there and use a hair tie. So hair tie.
I've got a lot of those.
So, there's the little bitty ones you can get. Just sew your hair tie elastic band around on the end and it will do the same thing. You can use that with your button sewing stitch.
That is a great idea. Actually, a few more questions. There's always like a 10-second delay, a few more questions rolling in. Oh, hi, April. Yes, don't forget. And you're on Facebook, so share it to your page. It makes it so much easier to find. And those of you on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to Brothers channel. You're welcome. You're welcome. Everybody's saying thanks. Oh, Sherry says, I would not suggest names. I know. I kind of like that peanut. I don't know if I want Chippendale or peanut butter. I like both. Everybody's saying this is so much fun. I know. Great projects. excellent projects. And thank you. I see everyone saying we're so happy that the shows are back on. We're back.
We're
so
back.
Cindy, you have your live show today. I'll make sure I put your website down below. Remind me, 4:30 Eastern?
4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central. I believe we're going to talk about creating templates for quilting on our ScanNCut.
That sounds awesome. All right. And then I will see some of you tomorrow live at 1:30 Eastern. Looking very forward to that. Cindy, I have got a pile of UFO projects that I'm debating if I should add appliques. Your idea here gave me some really home deck stuff, but I might take that and transfer it to some garments. I love it.
I mean, that's just a super simple, easy project, guys. We did it in less than an hour.
Yeah, everything.
And me explaining it. So yeah.
Very easy. I love the Velcro idea.
My fabric. And I did press my fabric before I started, just so we had nice things ready to go. But, you know.
Perfect. And then Thursday, by the way, Kim Montanesi is going to be coming on, and she has some more refashioning projects. So Brother's got a lot of sewing and crafting ideas for you for summer. This is going to be a lot of fun. Cindy, I'm looking forward to seeing you in like an hour.
Yeah. Oh, is it that? It's almost that. Yes. So Gay, you could stitch all the way around it if you want to. The one that I had up there, I had done 4 rows or 5 rows of stitching, so it didn't need another row of stitching around it. But you're certainly welcome to do that if you would like to have a top stitch all the way around it as well.
Great question. Cindy, great project. Great project. I'll see you this afternoon on your page. And Brother, thanks for these awesome At Your Side virtually. Can't wait to see what the next project is. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thanks for joining.